Doctors told Roy Benavidez he would never walk again. A bullet had torn through his spine in Vietnam. The Army Medicleo discharged him, put him in a wheelchair, and sent him home. His military career was officially over. But Roy Benavidez refused to accept that ending. He was not the kind of man to let a diagnosis define his destiny. Every single night, when the hospital was quiet and no one was watching, he would secretly drag himself out of his bed. Using chairs, walls, and any furniture he could reach, he pulled his lifeless legs forward, inch by agonizing inch. The pain was so intense that he would frequently pass out. His legs bled. His body screamed for him to stop, but Roy kept going, fueled by a will that simply would not break. Months of this grueling, self-imposed therapy went by. Then one day, the impossible happened. Roy Benavidez walked back into that same Army hospital, on his own 2 feet, and demanded to be reevaluated. The doctors were absolutely stunned. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. With such a miraculous recovery, the Army had no choice. They reinstated him, and so, Roy Benavidez went back to war. Fast forward to 1968, Roy is serving with the elite special forces in Vietnam. A frantic radio call crackles through the air. A 12-man team has been ambushed deep in enemy territory. They are completely surrounded by over 1,000 enemy soldiers. The situation is dire. Men are wounded, ammunition is critically low, and evacuation helicopters trying to reach them are being shot out of the sky. Pilots refused to fly into what was now a guaranteed death zone. No one was going in. Roy Benavidez didn't wait for orders. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed a medical bag, sprinted to a waiting helicopter, and ordered the pilot to fly him straight into the heart of the fight. He wasn't carrying a rifle. He was armed with only a medical kit and a knife. As soon as they approached the landing zone, the helicopter was ripped apart by intense gunfire. Roy jumped out, sprinting through a hail of bullets towards the wounded team. As enemy fire rained down from every direction, he began treating the wounded. He dragged men through open fields to relative safety. He carried others on his back. He was shot, then shot again. Shrapnel tore into his body. At one point, an enemy soldier got close enough to stab him with a bayonet. Yet, he refused to stop. He single-handedly organized a defensive perimeter, called in devastating airstrikes on enemy positions, and fought off attackers to protect the men he was trying to save. Time and time again, he ran back into the storm of gunfire to retrieve his fallen teammates. By the time the final evacuation helicopters finally managed to land, Roy had been wounded an unbelievable 37 separate times. He had bullet wounds, shrapnel wounds, and stab wounds all over his body. As he helped the last man onto the helicopter, his own strength finally gave out. He collapsed onto the helicopter floor, completely still. The medics on board saw his horrific injuries and his motionless body. They believed he was dead. One of them reached for the zipper on a body bag, but Roy Benavidez had one last act of defiance left in him. As the medic leaned over him, Roy summoned the very last ounce of his strength and spit in the medic's face. It was the only way he could signal that he was still alive, and he did survive. Roy Benavidez saved the lives of 8 men that day. His incredible heroism was almost lost to history due to paperwork and technicalities. He was initially given a lower award, but years later, eyewitnesses came forward, the records were corrected, and Master Sergeant Roy Benavidez was finally awarded the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest military decoration. When President Ronald Reagan placed the medal around his neck, he famously said, "If the story of your heroism were a movie script, people would say it was unbelievable." This was the man the Army had medically discharged, the man who wasn't supposed to walk again, the man who went into a battle for 12 men against 1,000, armed with little more than a medical bag and a knife, and walked out a legend. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, please consider sharing it so that the legend of Roy Benavidez is never forgotten. Subscribe for more stories of incredible courage.